Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything. Geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Porkins Policy Radio. As always, I am your host, Pierce Redmond, and you can find this show here at American Freedom Radio, AmericanFreedomRadio.com, as well as on my website, which is PorkinsPolicyReview.com. And you can also hear this show rebroadcast later on in the week on Fridays. Well, before we get started, we're going to have a jam-packed episode with a very special guest. But before we get started, I just wanted to quick few announcements. First of all, I just want to thank everybody on Patreon for subscribing. We've gotten a couple new subscribers over the past few weeks, so thank you all so much. There is a bonus podcast up for Porkins Great Games, so any subscribers out there, do check that out. And Christoph and I have actually revised our Patreon rewards program, so if you are $5 or more subscriber, you will get access to the bonus podcast. So all the $5 subscribers out there, please do check out the bonus podcast if you have not already. Few other things. Thank you so much to Nicole for a very generous donation on PayPal that I received earlier today. Of course, you can also support my work by going to my PayPal account, which you can find on my site. Also, check out my recent appearance on the Ocelli Effect with, of course, our good friend and frequent guest, Chuck Ocelli. We had a great conversation. It was me, Chuck, and Sherry Wisdom, also of AFR. Really fascinating episode. I had a lot of fun, and I always love being on Chuck's show. So check that out if you have not already. And also, very quickly, throughout the month of January, we're going to have a very special little perk for all of these subscribers on Porkins Policy Radio through Patreon, and that is Brian Heiss, our good friend and fellow OJ researcher. He is going to allow all subscribers throughout the month of January exclusive access to his epic documentary, OJ Veritas, The Furman Tapes. So if you become a subscriber in the month of January, if you're already a subscriber, you will be able to watch this unseen documentary. Only me, I think Ed Opperman has seen it, and a few other people out there. So all the more reason to become a subscriber. Well, with all of that out of the way, I am very excited about our show today. Today we are going to be discussing the 20th season of South Park. And joining me for this epic episode discussion of South Park is my good friend and sister, Emma Redmond. So,
hi.
Emma, how are you?
I'm okay. I just came from work.
Okay, great, good, excellent.
It's okay.
Right, yeah, no worries. Now we're, me and Emma have our beers open right now, so we're gonna have an enjoyable discussion on this. Emma, before we get into this, why don't you give the audience a little background? Who is Emma Redmond?
I am Porkins' sister. I did the logo a million years ago.
Yeah.
I am a textile artist and fashion designer. That's what I do. I make a lot of quilts and weird, wacky clothing for people and children soon. I teach as well.
Excellent. And what's your website for anybody that
EmmaRedmond.com and Instagram Emma Redmond, or it's Emma__Redmond. There's a lot of Emma Redmonds out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of Emmas in general.
None of them would follow me on Instagram. I followed all of them, and none of them would. Yeah, okay. None of them would follow me back.
All right. Well, if any of the other Emma Redmonds out there are listening, screw you guys.
Mm-hmm. Screw you guys.
But definitely check out my sister's website. It'll be up in the show notes. There's actually lots of great stuff for Christmas.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff for Christmas.
Some really gorgeous dresses that our friends did some modeling for. And also just wonderful quilts. And yes, Emma is the designer behind the Porkins Policy Radio and Porkins Great Game logo. And, yeah, and all the way back when, I don't know if only I think faithful listeners will remember, but we used to do a weekly cartoon series on the site. And Emma drew all those cartoons. So go back through the archives on the website. I think they're all tagged under Porkins Political Cartoon. Some of them are, I mean, they're all hilarious, but a few of them are actually just amazing. I used to have as my screensaver. The one of, I think it's Netanyahu, Obama, and Hillary Clinton playing Risk together.
That one's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few other pretty good ones. There's one about NASA that's pretty funny, too.
I think there's one of like a politicians at a sex party, I think I did.
Yeah, and Ayn Rand is there, getting her groove on as well. There's actually, I think there's a few Ayn Rand cartoons that we had.
Yeah, I have a bit of a obsession with her, not as a person, but as a style icon and as just a miserable person. She's a fun Halloween costume.
That was, I think, your best Halloween costume.
I think it was my best Halloween costume. You just wear like bunchy brown socks and have like a bitchy attitude.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, just ward off any potential friends and lovers in the process.
Oh yeah, no one wants to be around the Ayn Rand girl.
Well, anyway, I guess we should get started because there's a lot to talk about with the 20th season of South Park. So, quick disclaimer, this won't be a very PC episode, and there will definitely be a lot of foul language throughout. So, you know, if I don't know, if there's any children listening to this, I doubt it.
Away.
Yeah, right. Maybe put grandma to bed right now. This may not be her cup of tea. But you know, I guess full disclosure, Emma and I are massive fans of South Park. I would rate South Park probably as, along with King of the Hill, as my favorite, television show out there.
Yeah, I would say the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this particular season is sort of, kind of breaking the mold of traditional South Park seasons. This follows a very linear storyline, which Matt Stone and Trey Parker started with the 19th season, and that dealt with the PC principle and PC culture. So and this season is also even more linear, perhaps. And this season deals primarily with a couple of really interesting topics. The presidential election is, of course, one of them, where we see Mr. Garrison being elected president with his VP. His running mate is Caitlyn Jenner. And Garrison is Trump. He, you know, throughout the series, he becomes more Trumpish with the orange glow around his face, and then later with the hair, and he puts on a lot of weight. So it begins with Garrison running for president. It also has a lot to do with trolls and trolling internet culture. We have Gerald Broflovsky, this is Kyle's father, is trolling everyone from the girls on the school message board to a Danish Olympian who ends up killing herself, and he operates under the name Skank Hunt 42. This trolling causes a chain reaction where Cartman he ends up getting blamed for all of this, and the boys kind of take it out on him, and they destroy all of his devices. He ends up quitting Twitter. He starts dating Heidi Turner. Cartman talks quite a bit about how girls are smart and funny throughout. He and Heidi,
get over it.
Yeah, get over it. He and Heidi attempt to flee Earth because of all the trolling through Elon Musk's SpaceX program. Then the Danish, in response to Gerald and some of his fellow trolls, all of their trolling, and when this Danish Olympian, Frasier Oligard, kills herself, they create Troll Trace, which is this big, massive computer program that would be able to trace back basically all people's internet history. This is, brings about almost World War III. And then, of course, my favorite part of this whole series, of course, is the member berries. Which, I may be alone here. I know that Chuck Ocelli is a big Memberberry fan. Over the whole last week, Chuck and I kept sending each other various memberberry-related messages on Skype. And the memberberries, of course, are these lovable anthropomorphic berries.
Lovable?
I think they're lovable. I mean, we'll debate whether they're lovable or not, but the memberberries actually end up orchestrating the entire presidential election, and they're the reason that Garrison gets elected. But before we kind of dive into the specifics of all of this, Emma, what were your thoughts on this season? What did you love about this? What did you maybe not like about this?
I thought that the last season 19 was pretty amazing. Probably the best they have ever done. But I really liked this one. I'm gonna go out and say it, like, I hate memberberries. They're right. Like, I do know why they exist. And, like, so I get memberberries. I recently had some, like, severe membering.
I remember.
I remember. I just hate them. They're little weird faces. I liked a lot of it. I really loved Butters this season.
Yeah.
Butters is probably my favorite character. I think because he just goes through such changes, and Butters just really believes in a lot of things, and he really believes in them all out. In this season, he believed in, I don't really know what. I guess that the girls are gonna take over. So he had to, press his pickle.
Right, wieners out.
Yeah, wieners out.
Butters' protest where he drops his pants.
That was pretty amazing. I want to know what your opinion on Garrison as Trump is, because I really do like it, but I also have some issues with it.
Well, I would say that I also loved this season. There were times where I missed the kind of like not throwaway episodes, but the kind of random episodes.
Sort of the boys going on adventures.
Yeah, I do miss the boys going on adventures. I mean, Stan is almost non-existent in this season.
Stan is probably the character I identify most with, and I was a little bit bummed that there wasn't. So
yeah.
I'm also like Randy. Like, I want more Randy.
Yeah, there wasn't enough Randy.
Like, Randy's probably the greatest.
But I'll say this,
ever.
I did really like I thought that this season, while I wouldn't necessarily, there are some episodes I would rank very high. I don't think any of the episodes in this season I would rank as like some of my top favorite episodes. But the season as a whole, I think, is fantastic. Like, the season itself is, it's almost not like South Park. It's like a different experience and show. And I liked that they went with a linear fashion this time. I think they're going to probably stay true to that a little bit. A few of my just favorite moments that I just wanted to throw out early on, and then we'll get into Garrison. I loved Cartman's idea that vaginas had balls. I liked that a lot. I liked Dildo Schwaggins, who is Gerald's fellow troll. I love that he had an e-cigarette.
I see someone on the subway that looks like Dildo Schwaggins, and his life is now ruined because he will always be known as that guy that looks like Dildo Schwaggins.
I loved the sequence where Sheila starts peeing on Gerald.
I hated that.
I liked that a lot. I thought that was just a funny. That reminded me of the kind of old school South Park.
Yeah, it wasn't the smartest, which is okay. It doesn't always have to be.
But sometimes you need someone to get peed on.
Yes, you do.
Every once in a while, at least. One of my other favorite moments is when Cartman is asking Heidi about where girls' balls are, and Heidi offers to show him her vagina to show that they don't have balls, and the shot of Cartman saying, "Holy shit." Me and a bunch of my friends were just quoting that nonstop. And of course, the memberberries were my favorite part, I will say. I love the memberberry torture scene. I love the little mission that they go on. And if you're not familiar with the memberberries at all, take a moment right now and just Google memberberries singing Africa by Toto. Because that will be forever ingrained in my mind. And also, on a more technical note, this season had some of the most beautiful shots. Really, the sequence where the boys are out in the woods before they destroy Cartman's.
That was one of my favorite scenes, actually.
Yeah, there are just some of the more gorgeous shots that South Park has done. So yeah, I mean, I recommend it. I think this season is in a lot more ways, maybe more, like valuable as like a cultural moment.
Yes.
Than other South Park. I mean, South Park is always very, they are so fast with how they, for people that don't know, South Park does basically write and do everything in a week. They're the only show out there that does that.
I think this one also, for the first time, I felt like there was real character development. I think Garrison has always been an evolving character, and I kind of want to talk about that eventually, but like this was the first season where like Cartman had like a real change.
Yeah.
And like at first I started to miss like asshole Cartman, but then it's like watching Cartman fall in love is amazing. And how, because girls are just as funny and like just as smart, get over it, but like watching him really fall in love was kind of amazing. And I think Garrison also went through some real changes.
Yeah.
In every
Gerald,
kind of
I mean, we saw more of. I think we saw maybe a
too.
little too much of Gerald in this season.
I think that there was always a couple episodes in the past where Gerald would do some iffy things, like cheesing, which is when you inhale cat pee to hallucinate to heavy metal, the movie.
And of course his homosexual experience with Randy in the hot tub. This is another bizarre one in Gerald's book.
Or when he became a dolphin. I mean, there's many moments where he's been.
But this one was a much more. I liked what you were saying, the character arcs. I think Cartman and Heidi were. I hope that continues in some degree.
And it's already changed so much.
Yeah.
From like from the first time he saw a vagina to the last episode, like they've gone through so many different things.
You know what? I didn't realize that. I was looking this up the other night, but Heidi and Cartman actually have quite a history, and I'd sort of forgotten about that because they're with when they have to watch The Egg. Yeah. Heidi is partnered up with Cartman. And there's a few more people want to.
He calls her Clitty Litter, which is a great nickname.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, let's kind of dive into some of the topics and some of the characters, because I rewatched the whole season yesterday, and I was when you're watching it week to week, sometimes you kind of miss how complex a storyline it is, and I was really again struck at how much is going on in the season and how many big kind of powerful topics are explored. So I think the first one that I think we should get out of the way is the concept of nostalgia. And this is something I've talked about on the show now for a while now. I talked about it with Chuck. I've talked about it before myself, and also on an episode of Themes and Memes with Adam and Aaron. We talked about nostalgia. And the member berries are nostalgia. And they're fairly explicit about this throughout the season. They don't really kind of, pussyfoot around it. And, of course, nostalgia is used as a weapon to achieve the member berries' aims. And ultimately this gets the Trump Garrison elected through the member berries. And, and the member berries are always, member, Chewbacca.
Remember Chewbacca again?
Yeah. And they're always trying to member.
I think I just also hate how addicting it is. Because you can't stop it.
Right. And people become addicted to eating member berries. Yeah. To sort of forget about, the reality around them. So, Emma, I mean, just on that, I mean, what do you think of nostalgia in general? And leaving aside the member berries for a moment.
I'm gonna leave them aside.
Yeah. What do you think about the sort of concept of nostalgia?
I think a lot about it. I think that nostalgia is becoming more of. I think nostalgia is a beautiful feeling to have. It is. But I think that it can be used in such a horrible way, and I think that South Park showed it. Or not, I don't want to say horrible, but I think that nostalgia, it can be used also. You're remembering things wrong a lot of the times. I was having a real member berry moment in our old neighborhood where we grew up, and was like, oh, remember when that place used to be that? And like, but there were also like awful things about it. Like you don't remember the good, and you also remember, I think, if you like listen to the member berries, what they're talking about are like, remember Star Wars, like remember like the 90s.
Toto.
Remember Toto. Like, they're not really remembering real memories. They're remembering, they're remembering this idea of nostalgia. And I think that is, I mean, you just have to go on the internet and you can see.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point too, is nostalgia isn't so much about actually remembering, say, like a positive moment. It's almost like remembering the feeling that you had.
Yeah.
And that is always kind of clouded by however many years in between the membering moment and what's actually going on. And of course, the member berries are, they talk about, remember Reagan, remember feeling safe again, remember when, men weren't marrying each other, and, all of these, remember when there was no ISIS. That's a funny one.
That's, I think, something that nostalgia does, is that you remember these things that it's always like, remember the good old days. And like, when you really get back to it, were they good old days? And I feel like we have nostalgia for our childhood,
oh yeah,
or even like I have like weird nostalgia for like my parents' childhood, like, or I like would do anything to live in like New York in the 70s. But then you really get back to it and you're like, no, that's a shithole. Why would I ever want to live then?
Well, of course, and throughout the season, as certain people succumb to the member berries' power, they start questioning things, or they start supporting things that they know they don't really like. So Randy goes through that a bunch, where he embraces the member berries, then he, tries to create a support group for people trying to free themselves of the member berries.
Something.
Right. Well, I think,
but
that's a really interesting thing, because Randy, throughout the entire series, from episode, 1, season 1 onwards, he is always, he's very susceptible to groupthink, to trends, to whatever is in vogue at the moment. And he's a perfect candidate to be swayed by nostalgia. So Randy convinces himself that Garrison will make America great again, that the new Star Wars was great, all these sort of things.
And one thing I didn't even really think of until now is that the contrast of having nostalgia and SpaceX also being kind of big themes, and remembering a simpler time, and when the world was simple and things weren't as scary, and then also having something that is so ridiculous and kind of futuristic in contrast to that. And I think that is part of why people are so nostalgic for the past, is that we live in a very uncertain time. We also live in a time with massive technology, and it's changing so rapidly that I think it's scary. I know I'm afraid of technology deeply, and it's like a not healthy fear a lot of the times, but nostalgia sort of allows you then to sort of hide.
Yeah, to escape.
To escape from it, yeah. Like definitely.
Well, and I think it's fair to say that that's what a lot of the Trump or Garrison supporters are doing, is, of course, hiding from change, hiding from whatever kind of progress.
Remember when white men were on top?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I remember. No, exactly.
They always will be, let's be real. Like, it's not like they're not on top now.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing, too, is the concept that Garrison represents actual change. He's just more of the same, like Trump is. And that's what's so powerful about nostalgia. When you hear this, when you hear Garrison or Trump say, make America great again, it's, make it to what? To when it was, segregation and,
women couldn't vote.
Right, or horrible working conditions for children, terrible economic times.
That's one thing that I want to say about Trump, is he talks about like bringing factories back in America, and I'm very for that in many ways. I think that
textile industry.
Yeah, textile especially. I'm very passionate and involved in ethical production. But going back to the time he's talking about, like, the Triangle Fire happened because it wasn't ethical, and because, like, Made in America was not a great thing. The Industrial Revolution was not a great time to be a worker. And even past that, like, even up to, more recently, factory jobs are not necessarily going to be great. And I think that's a big thing that people need to think about.
Well, of course, it is also, how many people do really genuinely, like, wake up in the morning and, I cannot wait to get to that factory and screw in bolts in like a car door all day.
And if they did, then everyone would make their own clothing. And we wouldn't, and like...
A good friend of ours worked at the Crayola factory, and, I don't think he's dying to go back there anytime soon. It's not, I don't think he remembers that so well. And
he doesn't remember that well?
No, and one quick thing, and then we can maybe move off member berries, because we could probably talk about member berries for hours.
Speak for yourself.
But the head member berry, who's sort of pulling the strings, there's a moment where they're in the White House, and the member berries are having a party, and he has this little gang of member berries that are sort of doing his bidding. And he says, the top member berry says, ooh, remember stormtroopers? And of course the member berries, I love stormtroopers. And then the member berry says, no, the original stormtroopers. And he says something, people are gonna fucking remember them. And that is a very, it's sort of like, I think a lot of people probably dismissed it offhand, or they didn't pay attention. Thought about it. Right, and I think that's that's like one of the great sort of messages that Matt Stone and Trey Parker do with the show like South Park, where you have this little anthropomorphic Barry talking about, we're gonna bring back the like old school like Nazi stormtroopers, and people are gonna remember that forever. So a lot of the nostalgia stuff is a really interesting component to this season, and of course along with that, we were talking about nostalgia being sort of the past, but also there's so much technology going on and advancements, and of course the internet and that is one component. And of course, out of that, we get trolling and trolls, which is like a phenomenon that could only exist in today's environment. And trolling plays a very important part in this season. As we said, Gerald is a big troll. He basically helps almost bring about World War III with the Danish, classic, overreacting Danish. There are some really just hilarious moments. There's, Heidi Turner, she gets trolled so hard by Skank Hunt 42, that it's another one of the more beautiful scenes in the whole series. She's on this like bridge, and it's like a snowy day, and she has her phone out, and the camera just sort of pans up, and you just hear a plop in the water, and some birds fly away, and there's very sad music. And you think, oh my, did they just kill off Heidi Turner? Yeah, they just killed this little girl. And of course, what she was really doing was throwing her phone into the water, and she quits Twitter.
Which for some people, that is absolutely the
definitely.
thing.
And then the next scene is like, Bebe is crying, and all the kids are freaking out, and they actually, Mr. Mackey, the school counselor, he holds like a group therapy session in the library, and they all start tweeting about Heidi. And Mackie is, Heidi would have loved that. That's a nice poem, Butters.
It's so sick because it's true.
Well, and then also too, the trolling gets, then Cartman finds true love. And I think he does actually like Heidi.
I think he loves Heidi.
Yeah, I think he does love Heidi.
And I think he still does. For people that have seen all of it, there's something going on. There's a lot of tension now because he's afraid that he's just going to be like milked for his semen and jokes.
We'll get to the come and joke minds of Mars later.
I do think he loves Heidi, and I really do think that like in some ways he even knows Heidi saved his life. Like she really did.
Yeah,
I love that so much. I feel like Cartman's weird relationships are fascinating. I've always been fascinated by them. His sort of almost like quasi-homosexual tendencies are really interesting to me. And now...
but now he's found, his soulmate,
now he knows that vaginas don't have balls. Right. His life has been changed.
Well, look, before we, because we're gonna talk about the gender wars stuff, and we can get more into to Cartman and that later. But I just wanted to, on the idea of trolling. Yeah. Because of course Trump is trolling all of us.
Yes.
To a large degree.
He's been trolling all of us.
Yeah, and other trolls, of course, feed off of this. And they even explain that, what do they call it, Trevor's axiom, where, person A trolls person B, and that gets a response out of person C, but then persons, D through H start trolling person A because they're beating up on, so and I think that's essentially, how Trump won, is people supporting him because they didn't like that someone else was making fun of someone that liked him. And the whole, social media and the way that, and I'll say this, I mean, I have had to stop somewhat with my social media. Because I don't think I've never been trolled quite to the degree that some of the characters in this season get trolled, but you get a lot of irritating comments. You get a lot of people in the alt media who their sole purpose is to basically get a rise out of you on a YouTube comment and to get you to respond so that they can respond with an inane argument that makes no sense, knowing that you just spent 30 minutes out of your day not doing work, not focusing on, investigating something, but just getting pissed off at someone.
But can you take away that one moment of happiness in their miserable lives?
Well, that's what's funny in the season is that, like, Dildo Schwaggins, he actually is sort of a, sympathetic troll.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, kind of.
He is the kind of, proverbial, fat loser in his basement. But he does talk about how, trolling is the only way that gives him any power over the people that.
So sad. I've never been trolled. That's why I came on a radio show. Because I just want to see what the rest of the world feels like. But I definitely, I ride my bike to work every day, so I get yelled at a lot. But I'm kind of okay with that. I can see them, and then I can yell, something horrible to them and then bike away as fast as possible. I don't know if I could handle someone like Skank Hunt. And I guess I'm now encouraging that.
Right,
oh God, yeah. But I think that the trolls, and they were almost sympathetic towards the end, because that was one of my favorite scenes, was the first animation when you see all of the trolls, and just those are real people.
Oh yeah. The guy in the anonymous mask.
I also realized that one of the trolls is also from the World of Warcraft episode.
Yes.
It's
with the he's got the carpal tunnel brace on. Yeah.
But just like those people, and you kind of see them sometimes. And maybe I'm passing judgment. Maybe I'm like a secret troll, and I'm like, you see them, and you're like, yeah, that guy trolls.
Well, that's a question that they bring up through the season is, of course, that everyone, well, everyone is kind of a troll, or everyone has said something. Yeah, everyone is capable, and I think it's fair to say. I mean, I maybe I wouldn't necessarily call it trolling at the time, but I definitely trolled Glenn Greenwald until he blocked me off Twitter, essentially. And I
once you get blocked off of Twitter, I think you can be called a troll.
Yeah, and I'm sure Glenn Greenwald would say I was a troll. I mean, now, to my credit, I think I was asking him legitimate questions, although in a very snarky kind of a manner. And people, I think, enjoy that about the internet. So it is also a reflection on ourselves. And the question of, is trolling funny or not? So, I mean, is it?
Yeah. I think that, there's obviously people I would love to troll. There's some people.
Lena Dunham.
I would love to troll Lena Dunham. I even have probably a notepad of things I would troll her with. But they would all be rational trolling. I'm not, I'm not a bigot.
Right.
I'm funny.
Yeah.
But I think that it's not. I think that it can be. That's really where it gets tricky, and that's what there's such a great point where they say I'm a satirist, or you're a nihilist, and I think that's it's hard to say who's who, and I think it really depends, because the troll thinks they're hilarious. I don't think anyone really, except for maybe a few really sick fucks, most people go. When they're trolling, they think that they're being hilarious, but they're being so edgy. And
Gerald says he just does it for the lulz.
Yeah, he does it for the lulz. And he really, but when you think about Gerald starts out trolling on a school message board
for
with
kids.
8-year-old girls.
Yeah.
That's who he's trolling.
Yeah, that's the level.
I'm that can't be funny. That really just.
Or trolling a breast cancer survivor website. It's not, is that actually funny?
Yeah. But that's the thing that I wonder, though, then what happens when you troll someone that, is kind of wrong, or someone that, kind of deserves, a kick in the ass?
Well, Dildo Schwaggins brings that up when he has this whole thing about how trolling is political. And that does make you wonder, is it okay to troll Trump? you know?
Yeah.
Because I think he actually gets off. I think he
Yeah.
like literally, you know, gets physically excited
I am
over
very
people trolling
for
him.
Trolling corporations.
Mm.
I think that you should troll corporations. I think that there's nothing bad about that. Even
Yeah.
if it's like done in mean spirit, like troll H&M, troll like all of that shit. Like
Yeah, Monsanto.
troll Monsanto. Like troll McDonald's if you want even.
Mm.
Like there's no I feel like, but when it gets to people, and it is a scary point because, like, obviously I would love to troll Trump. I'm not going to because I don't have Twitter, but like I would love to. But at the same time, like that doesn't. Yeah, does he get off on that? And I don't
definitely.
I don't want to help him.
Yeah.
Get off.
or you know, the question is, well, do you want to just feed the beast? You know, even if it's not Trump who's getting off on it, do you want to feed some, you know, neo-Nazi dipshit on YouTube?
And it's so easy. That's the thing, is that the reason why people didn't maybe do this in the past was because saying things to people is difficult and it's scary.
Mm.
And I think that that's an important thing. I think that the internet has removed shame. And
Definitely.
sometimes that's like really dangerous. Like you shouldn't be shamed for a lot of things, but you also should be shamed for a lot of things. Like there's times where like you should feel shameful for doing that. You should be ashamed for like trolling a breast cancer awareness website.
Yeah,
like that should be something that like makes
Yeah.
you feel shame.
I mean, it's just crazy that we're even saying that you have to like mention that, you know?
I know, yeah. And that's like some of the things that Trump says. Like I don't think he knows the emotion of shame.
No.
But if he did,
Except when it comes to his hands.
Except when it comes
And
to
his
his
micro
hands.
penis.
Yeah, and his very large clitoris, yeah. But when...
Emma, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm going to have to put another disclaimer halfway through this.
I've thought a lot about it and why he is the way he is, and I think that's the reason why.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But but people just don't feel shame, and I think that the anonymous aspect of the internet has allowed that.
Mm.
And it's one of those things that I grew up towards the beginning of everyone becoming technologically aware. And the one thing that, and it still was, I was probably the first generation to mostly learn on computers. But one thing that we never learned about how to like be a human being on the internet. And that's such a scary and upsetting thing that we have to. I wish that we lived in, like, I remember a day when we didn't, but
I remember.
it is scary that we really don't teach people how to be human beings on the internet and how to treat people with just the minimal amount of respect.
Well, that's like, there's such an emphasis on cyberbullying, and obviously it does exist. I mean, you know, there are anecdotal stories of, you know, mothers trolling their daughters, I don't know, enemies, and then some poor girl kills herself over it. I think, but in a larger sense, there's so much of that because of this is anonymous thing that and because I think so many parents out there are just content with kind of plopping their kids in front of a screen. And they don't really care about like socializing their children or teaching them things. And we've also, as we've become more, I don't know, bullyish, we've also basically stopped, you know, backing our kids. You know, it's like if someone's bullying you, like, well, you don't have to bully them back, but like stand up for yourself. You know, there isn't that. And I think in part there isn't that because, you know, if you try to stand up for yourself online, you're going to get way more. If you just ignored it, it would go away to some degree. But if you try to stand up for yourself, you're going to get 10 people that didn't care that are all of a sudden going to care, and they're going to, you know, troll a breast cancer survivor. It really is like this pathetic cycle. And obviously in South Park they don't really answer this question.
No, they don't answer, but I do think they bring up a good point, and this is something that I think about a lot because I'm pretty I like to be a little disconnected from the interweb because it scares me. But there's also that other point where then, like, you're not really living in reality. And I hate that, but it's true. It's like, if I didn't have an email and if I didn't have all of these things,
you're not in the real world.
I would actually not be a human being. I would be, like, in a cave, like, you know, wearing rawhide. And that's a thing that they kind of bring up a little bit when Cartman gets off the internet, when Heidi gets off the internet. they like hang out in this park.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
all these
and
other
that's
people.
considered like quaint and kind of like taboo.
Yeah, and it's sort of this like, oh, don't look at them.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
don't look at the strange
yeah, and they're just
people.
sitting out in a park
Yeah,
talking.
they're just, and that's sort of a scary thing where, you know, not wanting to be a part of that, you kind of do become a little bit of an outsider, and you sort of are not part of functioning society. And in reality, like, you're not that different. Like, you know, people did amazing things before they had the internet.
You know, I was just thinking as you were saying that too, Heidi and Cartman are in the park, and there's even that moment where Cartman is sort of bummed out, he doesn't have followers, and Heidi is, oh, I'll be your follower, and he's like, yeah. And he's like kind of excited, but in another sense, they almost, you know, as they become this new couple, and we all know, people, we've all had friends, you know, when they get a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and, you know, it's just baby this, babe that, and they become very introverted, and I mean, I'm guilty of it too, I've done it. But you do, when you kind of fall in love with someone, you do become very introverted in a similar sense to like on the internet. They just become addicted to themselves. Yeah. And I don't know if what that means or anything, but it is interesting to see that's what plays out. And then of course too, in another sense, they end up having to use trolling in order to bring down the biggest troll, the guy who's running Troll Trace, who turns out to not even be Danish. I guess, you know, spoiler alert, we're gonna, if you haven't already been spoiled.
It's such a weird spoiler, like at that point, like it doesn't,
right, but he turns out not to really be Danish, but he's actually a troll who was doing all of this to basically bring about World War III to prove that everyone is a troll and that none of this really matters. But
kind of like the Black Mirror episode for those viewers that saw that. It's sort of a similar, not as funny.
No,
but,
definitely not as funny.
But a similar idea of, I guess, trolling to prove how everyone's a troll. And I think that trolling does that. I think that it really does.
It creates this like animalistic desire where, I mean, I see this too sometimes. I'll see some stupid ass comment on Twitter from somebody.
And it gets to you.
And it does. And it gives you that like, you're like, I just want to fucking rail into this person. And then you have to take a step back and say, why do I even care?
But if someone said like those things to you at a bar, would you do anything or would you just ignore them?
I don't think anyone would ever say that to me in a bar. That's the thing. You know, and
I would prefer them to. I'd prefer for someone to say a horrible thing to me.
Well, you know what? No one was saying it in a bar because everyone is looking at their damn phone.
That's true.
You know, nobody.
They are saying it in a bar.
Right, they are saying it in a bar. Exactly. They're tweeting it or like, you know, commenting on Instagram about it. But of course, no. I mean, no. Most of these trolls aren't going to, you know, with the exception of, you know, there are some people that will say anything to anybody. But most of the people out there, I mean, they won't say something. And this isn't to be like, oh, because they're not, you know, well adjusted and they're losers. It's just because in reality, I think inherently people do have most people, you know, with the exception of like psychopaths, are born with somewhat of a moral compass in that you're not going to go up to a breast cancer survivor in real life and say, you know, you're a dumb bitch.
And I think it's also just the fact that they can get away with it. I think that's really what it kind of comes down to is you can get away with it. And if you can get away with things, the things that people would do if no one sees them, you know, are horrible probably. And it probably would keep you up at night to think about.
Well, that's when, you know, Trump or more important, you know, Trump supporters talking about, you know, he's against the you know, the pedophile agenda. And it's, you know, he is trolling you to your face because this guy is, at the very least, a protector of pedophiles, if not a full-on pedophile. So, yeah, I mean, of course, I think there's more to get into with the trolling and all that kind of stuff. But maybe before we kind of move on to the next topic, because the trolling does kind of, I guess, you know, screw, we'll just move on to the next topic. So the other big kind of, one of the other big sort of cornerstones of this season, is the gender wars that ensue. And this sort of starts on a base level. We've got, the whole series starts with a bunch of the girls on the volleyball team, which I love that they continued that, the whole storyline of the girls volleyball team.
Because let's be honest, no one would go.
And that's like a running joke.
And I would know no one would go.
And the girls all sit down. during the national anthem to protest Skink Hunt, who they think are the boys trolling them. And then this has like a whole chain reaction, and basically then it does become divided, where Butters becomes a sort of men's rights activist, and there's some wonderful drawings of Butters with his chin up and his like fist up and his pants down with his little wiener out, and they do like a march where they, wiener's out, and it's like all the boys marching through the hallways of school, and of course the girls get pissed, and this sort of becomes larger and larger, and then of course the Danish unleash Troll Trace in Fort Collins, which is a town in Colorado, and this basically becomes a war zone. Of course, because all these women are seeing that their husbands are all on nasty porn sites and Ashley Madison. Then all these other women are seeing that their best friend Jane said that she was ugly and this and that, and this whole gender war kind of becomes larger and larger. And then a lot of it too is Cartman's whole thing about women are funny and smart, and he's always talking about Amy Schumer, who I hate and is not. She actually just isn't funny. That's not based on her gender. She's just not funny at all. But Emma, what did you think about the gender wars thing?
I mean,
I liked it a lot.
I loved it. I really liked it. I always think that South Park, some of the girls in the class are always some of the smartest characters. Especially Wendy. Fucking love Wendy. And I think that they always sort of have, especially Wendy, like always has a point to make. And I think that the girls did have a point to make with Butters. Like he was being like a little turd. And I really liked it. I think that it's something that...
Oh, well, what we should mention too, of course, is that this all happens because the trolling doesn't stop. All the girls break up with all the boys. Which is an amazing scene. I don't know what that song is. I don't know what that's from either.
It's so good.
Someone was telling me that maybe it's like Gladiator. I don't know what it's a great, one of the best sequences in the series. Is this slow motion scene.
And I think Butters gets broken up with his Canadian girlfriend and that over Skype, and that really just like hits him hard. And like he can't handle that. And I do think that there is something about it that just like, I don't know why I loved it. And I don't know if that's, do you think that it was part of the season was to always have that be a major theme? Girls versus boys?
Yeah, I think so. I think that...
I guess because of the election.
I think it's just... Yeah, no, of course. And they've discussed the whole. There have been other sort of gender war episodes. There's the sex ed episode is a big one, and Butters has kind of expressed his.
Butters has some really funny ideas about ladies.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's the whole episode where Butters becomes a pimp.
Yeah, Butters becomes a pimp.
And of course he does end up being Hobbit. The nice pimp.
The Kardashian episode where he just has no idea that women don't look like Kim Kardashian. Right. And like, how could they not?
Plastic surgery.
Yeah, plastic surgery and airbrushing.
No, I think the other reason that Matt Stone Trey Parker did it is because it is the whole gender war thing is real. Yeah. Insofar as it. You go on any number of alternative media websites and it's all of this stuff about, women are part of the, Marxist plan to emasculate us.
Well, we are. We have secret meetings. Yeah, that we go to.
And they do play up on this concept later on where Cartman is always, he wants to go to Mars. He's really obsessed with SpaceX, and he thinks that if him and Heidi get to Mars, then they can be safe from all of the trolling and gender wars and all this stuff. And then slowly through Butters and a few other people, he becomes convinced that the women on Mars actually have a secret agenda, and that is, of course, to milk the men for their semen and jokes. And there are some great shots of what Cartman refers to as the cum and joke mines of Mars. And that is, I think, that instantly, of course, reminded me of the Scum Manifesto. Who, I forget what her name is, Valerie.
Crazy person.
No, definitely, but in the Scum Manifesto, and this is artist. I can't remember her name. I'll try and look it up during the break. She shot Andy Warhol. That was her claim to fame. But she did envision a world where basically men would be milked for their semen.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, a real, belief amongst a lot of people.
I think that it is something that when you have Trump, though, say the things that he does about women, you kind of, then maybe if you see those women, you can kind of then, that are angry, or then well, they hate us. They hate us. Well, it's no, they hate horrible things you're saying. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand. And I do think that, this election he got away with such incredible amounts of misogyny. And anyone that doesn't believe that, you're a fucking idiot. You're actually.
Well, it's just what if Trump tried to grab your mom's pussy?
Yeah. Or your daughter's pussy.
Yeah, exactly. Is that actually okay? And oddly enough, a lot of women defending him.
Those are the craziest
which
ones.
It sort of boggles the mind.
I know.
But again, I think it is a real issue. In that there is this, and on the flip side, I interact with a lot of women, and there is this underlying, I don't really like you because you're a man, you're part of the patriarchy.
I'm not gonna lie, I work in a very women-only field. I work with women. I've never had a male boss. I've never worked with men. A
lot of cycles all kind of tied up together.
Yeah, our moon blood comes at the same time. But I think that part of the reason why I've never really had any of that experience is I've just never been around it. I'm not on Twitter. And so I'm not really used to that. But I do think that this election did show that, and I was not with her.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure, I was not with her.
And my sister really doesn't like Hillary Clinton.
I really don't. But I do think that this election did sort of say, you can kind of say whatever the fuck you want about women. And, that's kind of okay if it's coming from this crazy man that can get away with anything. And it's not just women. I think that it's, I think that a lot of people, they use that just because, and I think they use it because we are half of the planet. So we're not a minority. We are a huge majority, and so many of them voted for him, which I don't understand. But I just can't wrap my head around why you can get away with that. And I think that South Park brought up a good point with the trolling, was that because no one's going to stop you. No one's really going to stop you.
Well, and then of course there's the, which just kind of comes out of nowhere, but Bill Clinton does make an appearance. Amazing drawing of this decrepit looking Bill Clinton.
Just every liver spot was to a T.
And he talks about how he was going to be the first gentleman, and he forms a gentleman's club with Bill Cosby. So I think it's fair to say Matt Stone and Trey Parker, you can tell how they view those two scumbags. Bill Clinton is the one that warns Butters that, these women have put up with our shit for a long time.
And that's one thing that I am always just amazed by men's rights activists. Is when have you guys never really been in charge? When?
Yeah, of course.
Maybe in ancient Samaria, a very long time ago.
Yeah. But those are Arabs, so it doesn't matter,
But you've always been in charge. And that's what always, and the people like Butters, it's you're always going to be in charge, man.
Well, ultimately it's just Butters is all broken up because his girlfriend dumped him.
Exactly.
Which is every men's rights activist.
Every man, they couldn't get a date, or they wouldn't put up with their shit. There's only so many sandwiches you can make before you lose your shit. We have access to the internet and to Sylvia Plath, so we're gonna leave you eventually if you're an asshole.
It's also, there's this knee-jerk reaction, of course, to dismiss feminism in the alternative media. And I understand to a degree there is, because they focus on the most radical
they are not even the most radical sometimes. I think it's that sort of that very annoying neoliberalism, feminism that people like Lena Dunham, and it's that.
I know,
feminism.
She manages to make me dislike.
I know, but it's not it's what she's sort of. Oh,
Oh, well, we're coming up on the break. It's all right, Emma. You can still talk a little bit.
I'm going to complain about Lena later.
We will be back with more in the second hour on South Park.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American.
It's practically narcotic.
Freedom.
Oh, yes. I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
Are you feeling embarrassed and stuck because you can't focus or concentrate? I have a confession to make. I spent years unable to think clearly, like I was in a fog. I was going through the motions, running my companies, and I hated feeling groggy and mentally sluggish. I couldn't get ahead like this. It's no secret, the powers that be want us dumbed down. Chemicals, fluoride, our brains are under siege, and we are experiencing lower IQs. But now there's a weapon to fight back and win. Introducing DNA Evolve, a revolutionary breakthrough in a category of cognitive enhancers called nootropics. I've been using DNA Evolve and couldn't feel better. For me, it works. It feels great to get things done again and get ahead. Try a free sample for yourself at DNAEvolveSample.com. That's DNAEvolveSample.com. Supplies are limited, so go to DNAEvolveSample.com right now.
Did you know there are 3 million edible food plants on Earth, and none have the nutritional value of the hemp plant? HempUSA.org offers you hemp protein powder. It does not contain chemicals or THC, is non-GMO, and is 100% gluten-free. Hemp protein powder burns fat, builds muscle, contains 53% protein, and feeds the body the nutrients it needs. Call 888-910-4367 and see what our powder, seeds, and oil can do for you. Only at HempUSA.org. HempUSA.org introduces 3 brand new detox formulations of microplant powder. Brain Fuel for depression, bipolar disorders, and stress. Total Care, anti-cancer agent that cleans the liver and organs and increases memory. Rejuvenate, invigorates and heals the body, mind, and spirit. These products are your alternative to pharmaceuticals. Call 888-910-4367 and like us on Facebook. We ship worldwide. Only at HempUSA.org.
This is Rick Simpson, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
What about show business? Show business, completely dishonest, corrupt, and full of shit, but in a nice way. Plenty of expensive drugs and perverted sex. If you're going to be full of shit, might as well enjoy your work. Then you have the media. Not just the news media, let's include them all. The media are almost literally exploding with bullshit because they're located right at the crossroads of all the other bullshit. The media are made up of equal parts advertising, politics, business, public relations, and show business. These people are sitting right at bullshit junction. There's enough bullshit in the media for Texas to open a branch office. And you still have enough left over to start 2 law firms and a Christian bookstore.
What has American Freedom Radio ever done for us?
Provide us with free education?
Well, that's obviously effective, but apart from reversing the dumbing down of America...
All the information they provide is free?
What about the free podium for broadcast activists to speak from, man?
Exploiting commonplace corruption?
They help vulnerable people who don't have a voice?
Bringing light to important information nobody else does.
Or they never censor, hang up, or cut off their guests? Well, that's not fun, is it?
Oh, they created a fantastic alternative media source during an era of bad, manipulative, and infiltrated mainstream and alternative media shows and scum.
Okay, well, apart from the free education, free information, free podium for broadcast activists to speak from, exposing commonplace corruption, helping vulnerable people without a voice, bringing light to important information nobody else does, and creating a fantastic commercial-free alternative media source in a sea of bad, manipulative mainstream and alternative media shills and scum, what has American Freedom Radio ever done for us?
Donate to American Freedom Radio today. No rules, no rules, no taboo topics, no fear of doom, We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio. Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything. Geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Porkins Policy Radio. I am your host, Pierce Redmond. If you are just joining us right now, I am joined by my lovely sister, Emma, who is very smart and funny. And we
Get over it.
Yeah, get over it, everybody. We are discussing, of course, the 20th season of our favorite TV show, South Park. And we've been covering a lot of different topics thus far. Anyone that was listening to the first hour will remember that we were talking about the gender wars. And Emma, before we kind of move on to Trump and Garrison, I just wanted to get your opinion on this. Do you? I guess we kind of covered it, but Cartman, I guess, kind of figures out that he does love Heidi, but he doesn't really think she's funny. He kind of admits that. And I loved their sort of climactic scene where Heidi is like, you've been really distant.
It's a joke.
And Cartman is, or no, even before that when Heidi's like, you seem distant. He's like, distant? Really? Oh my God. And Butters and Elon Musk are tampering with SpaceX. What did you, I guess I did really like it, but just quickly, do you do think Cartman does actually like Heidi?
Yeah, I think he does. I really do think he does. He even says, I can't live without her.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Which was kind of like one of the few moments where Cartman
has humanity.
Yeah. And there's almost no moments like that. Almost everything Cartman, even when Cartman does, like we mentioned before, Cartman and Heidi had to work on a school project in an earlier episode. I want to say season 10 or 11 maybe. And ultimately Cartman ends up screwing it up, but he takes the blame for it.
But they both get a C.
Well, but thinking that their grade will average out to a C. So everything is always, it's his, he always does something for himself. But, talking about character arcs, I think it'll be really interesting to see if Matt Stone and Trey Parker continue that. Because I would love to kind of see Cartman finally kind of grow a little. There's the episode where Cartman ends up killing all of his stuffed animals in this really bizarre manner, and that's how he kind of throws off the shackles of that aspect of his childhood. And maybe this is Cartman kind of finally growing.
I think it might be him growing. I think it's him, but what he grows into might be really interesting. I don't think it's going to be a great guy. He's still going to be Cartman.
Yeah. Well, he has that great line.
He's destined for greatness.
He has a great line where he says to Heidi, I'll always do what's best for both of us.
Yeah.
Sort of something. But in a way, that's as sweet as Cartman's going to get.
Yes.
He is doing it because he does want to be with her.
Yeah. I do really like, though, sort of him kind of realizing she isn't funny.
She is smart, though.
She's smart, though.
Yeah.
But, sometimes, we can all say, we've been with people when you're like, oh, God, he's not funny.
Yeah.
Or, she's just not funny. And, that's kind of awful.
Yeah, I know, because then it's how much, good sex can make up for the fact that
you're not
you're not really laughing, you know?
Yeah. Or it's like when you're laughing, like you get it like a minute later, you're like, oh god, there's something, like you were damaged as a
we
child.
need to break
like
up.
there's something horribly wrong
We really
with
need
you.
to talk.
Yeah.
I think we need to take a break.
Yeah, like not funny people are like bad people. But I think that he's gonna kind of, because he already sort of now sees that there is something in their relationship where like he has the upper hand. Like he is the smart one. You know, he's the one that would be writing the jokes in the cum minds of Mars.
Right.
And I think that but I do think that he still knows that she's smart. And I do think that might be a big part maybe next season if they kind of keep with it of.
Yeah, I wonder if this will finally be Cartman's kind of undoing. Because, you know, that's like that idea is sort of in, you know, to get super nerdy on everybody. I think in the Song of Ice and Fire novel series, I think Littlefinger's ultimate downfall will be his love for Sansa.
Someone can just troll him for just being a nerd now.
No, but you know what I mean? I think that love or like the infatuation with someone can be your ultimate downfall.
I think that's like so much of what like art and literature is based off of, and that's like the harpy myth is like these ladies are gonna just like destroy you.
Or no, not the harpies.
The sirens. Sirens. Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting to see if they do kind of continue on with that, because I do like that South Park is again it manages to stay fresh by basically doing what everyone else is doing, which is like super linear shows, and I think it works because even though the episodes are, you know, and they do like 2-3 part episodes, you know, throughout the series, but this one is very linear. But either way, Cartman has grown from, you know, season 1 to where he is right now. Same for, you know, Kenny, Kyle, Stan, Randy, Gerald, Garrison is. Well, let's get into Garrison.
Let's get into Garrison, because there's a lot to talk about Garrison. I feel like there's always a lot to talk about Garrison. Like when I remember watching this season, and I totally forgot about like Mr. Hat. And like he's just gone through so many transformations. He was a lesbian for a while. Mr. Slave.
Mr. Slave, makes an appearance.
I love that Mr. Slave had like a little cameo, because you don't really see him very often. And he just is great.
Well, then he also, when he transitioned to being a woman, he then that's when he became a lesbian. But then he got sick of lesbians and only wanted to date men. He famously had an affair with Richard Dawkins.
Yes.
A very graphic one.
So many lines that I can't say, because my grandma might still be listening.
And I'll say Garrison has always been one of my favorite characters. He's not a nice person per se, although he does have moments where he does genuinely care about. There are moments where he does care about the kids.
No, I think that there's moments where he's the more rational one. You know, I do think that he has that.
He is a racist and he's a homophobe.
I mean, he's kind of everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the thing, is that like there isn't really any, like he's, you know, is in a relationship with Mr. Slave and he's still a homophobe.
Right.
Like he's, you know.
And Matt Stone and Trey Parker they've talked about Garrison is this, the reason they like writing for Garrison is because he is able to just go through the full gamut of emotions and genders and thoughts and opinions and that's what makes him such a fascinating character. And that's why I like Garrison so much. He also just sometimes is super funny.
He is.
You know, he just has some amazing lines. And you know, the whole premise again or the plot line of Garrison running for president, they do a callback to an earlier episode, which is, I think it's called Vote or Die. Or it might be Giant Douche Turd Sandwich.
Episodes. That's the same one.
Yeah, and the whole episode basically revolves around the kids trying to pick a new school mascot, and their choices are a turd sandwich or a giant douche.
And I loved that they stuck with that.
Yeah, and
I
then
loved it.
Right, and then in
Mrs. Turd Sandwich is one of the
right.
greatest.
Hillary Clinton is the wait, is she the
yeah she's Turd Sandwich.
Hillary Clinton is a turd sandwich, and Garrison is the giant douche. And they actually do, those are the names they use when they're running.
Yeah.
And that's how they refer to it. And Garrison along with Caitlyn Jenner, who I also loved as his character.
Buckle up, buckaroo.
Yeah. And surprisingly, they are super mean to Caitlyn Jenner, but also not.
You know, the thing is, they're not. I think that so many people are going to say it's transphobic, and I don't think it is. They're not making fun of trans people. They're making fun of
that individual person.
Yes, they're making. Yeah. And if you can't make fun of like a horrible person from reality television, I don't want to live in this world anymore.
No, of course.
Like that's. Yeah.
There's even moments where Caitlyn Jenner is like actually the reasonable one between the two of them.
Yeah.
Because Garrison, of course, becomes terrified of the idea of winning, and also to preface this, his campaign promise is to quote fuck them all to death. Mm-hmm. So obviously bomb the shit out of them is this, that's what they're playing on. But so Garrison will, he's going to fuck all the immigrants to death. He's going to all the drug dealers, ISIS, all these people. And then basically people start glomming on to this campaign promise. And as it becomes more and more evident that Garrison and Jenner are going to win, he gets really freaked out. Mm-hmm. And there's a moment where he says to Caitlyn Jenner, well, I just wanted to be president. I thought you were going to run domestic and foreign affairs. And Caitlyn Jenner said, isn't that your job? And then, of course, Garrison tries his best to piss off the American public. And that, of course, backfires. There's an amazing episode that was – they must have put that out the day after the debate with Lester Holt.
Yeah.
And it's a debate with Lester Holt in the show. And, of course, Garrison goes on and says, I'm worthless. Don't vote for me. He says, I literally have no idea what I'm doing. And Hillary Clinton
My opponent is a liar.
My opponent is a liar. And Garrison is always ripping on Clinton. Why did they have to run her?
Yeah.
She's literally the worst person to run against me. And that is very funny and topical. But and then, of course, Garrison then kind of gets off on it. When he does become elected, he goes around confronting all of the people that
in such a bizarre way.
In a very bizarre way where he I don't even know if we should really get into that.
I don't even think we need to. We just watch it.
Yeah, just watch that and you'll get why we don't want to talk about it on the air. And then Garrison has this evolution. He gets orange face paint. Later they do his hair. Mm-hmm. He develops his
beautiful transition.
Yeah, he develops his stank face. Which is another one of the better animation.
The
moments.
Animators really they really did an amazing job this season. We've been saying a lot, but like with Stinkface was especially just one that they got it down.
And it does look, it's like the face that Trump makes when he doesn't know what to say.
Yeah, and I couldn't even describe what it was until they had it, but now every time I see it, which is every day because he's our president-elect, I see Stinkface.
And then of course, he they play up the idea that the Garrison is easily trolled. Mm-hmm. So Mr. Slave convinces him to bomb Denmark because he's he wouldn't do it because he doesn't have any balls. Then later Kyle is able to convince him to not bomb Denmark, because he's just hung up on his boyfriend, Mr. Slave, who dumped him. And very much like that is how Trump would operate, I think. But Emma, what did you think about the idea of having a series or the season be about Trump but not having Trump?
I think you can view it two ways. I think that they didn't want to give him the publicity.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's that. I think that's how a lot of people started out. People didn't want to give him the publicity, but at a certain point, he is going to be our president.
Yeah.
And I wonder if not giving him the publicity is almost letting him win because you're letting him get away with it. I don't know. I think that now they have to stick with Garrison as the president. I will say that's one thing that I've noticed about South Park. Even in the last season, they did the episode about last night with the election. But for the most part, they don't really criticize the president.
No, they actually don't.
They don't.
One of the best sitcoms of all time, That's My Bush. It's by Trey Parker and Matt Stone, and it is a sitcom about President Bush.
Yeah.
And they're pretty upfront about that. I think basically because they could give a shit less about the president.
I think it's more of that.
It's an irrelevant figure to them.
I wonder, yes, and I do think he is, but I wonder what they could have done, because I do think they could have done things, and if only for it would have just, like, really pissed him off. Like, it really could have pissed him off, because I don't think he won't view it as making fun of him now.
Yeah, but I wonder if you were getting satirized as a two-time post-op. I don't know, but I would think that being
Trump
portrayed as Garrison is, I think, worse than Alec Baldwin.
That's true. That's
true.
That is
like Alec Baldwin
true.
doing Donald Trump is just
But the thing that
obvious.
scares me is that I don't know if Trump was watching, he'd be like, "Who is that weird orange-faced person?" Like, I actually don't think his ego would see it.
I think Trump probably knows South Park. You know, I think he's probably, you know, he's a celebrity.
Yeah,
He's basically a Hollywood celebrity. He knows South Park.
Yeah.
He knows that. I think if anything, I found it interesting that there was less attention in the Hollywood media about this season of South Park.
Yes.
You know, every you know, fucking...
because they make fun of Turd Sandwich.
Right. Well, they do make fun of Turd Sandwich. They make fun of Bill. That's for sure.
They make fun of Bill. Yeah.
But I think there's also the you know, SNL can do an episode about Trump and he feels the need to reply to it. You know, or respond to it every, you know, episode. But it's funny that he didn't do it with this, and I wonder if it's almost... I kind of saw that they make Garrison into almost a bit player, you know?
Yeah.
He's just a cog. And I think that is, perhaps that might be viewed by some people as, oh, you're not taking this seriously. Or they're just saying it as, he's a joke.
Well, I think that's what they do is I feel like in other parodies, like I've seen some of the Alec Baldwin ones, and like they're making him into like such a buffoon, and like, I mean, I don't think it's so necessarily far, but it's so broad and it's so over the top, where in this it's actually like Garrison is like a scared shitless, and like he's a scared like little man, and I think that that's more real. And I think that it's easier to make fun of a celebrity impersonating you than a cartoon character that's probably hitting maybe a little closer to home.
Yeah. I think the SNL stuff is really base. It's super easy to make fun of Trump. I think it's a lot more clever when you have Garrison again going through another monumental transition.
And they also had the Canadian president. They had a fake Canadian president that won an election that was also a Canadian Trump.
Yeah.
And I think that might almost be like they're going to just create it's almost now an archetype within the South Park universe of not Trump but Trump.
Yeah.
Of these silly little orange men.
I think that's what they are, and they are just insignificant. I like that they didn't make Garrison necessarily like the sort of centerpiece of the whole series, because I think that would be really easy to do, and I think that would give Trump too much credit. And I think ultimately that's my interpretation of what Matt Stone and Trey Parker were doing.
I do agree with that. I do wonder sometimes though if there's a fear in sort of I agree with not giving him credit, but there's also the flip side of, do you ignore them? Because ignoring him got him to where he is.
Yeah.
To some extent. Like, ignoring him and not really taking it seriously is...
well, I think they took it seriously, because there are a couple moments in this season where they basically spell out, that, you know, Trump and the member berries are going to bring stormtroopers, the actual ones.
Yeah.
They do play up how... you know, asinine Trump's thought process is, but I think on another level,
there's a great scene too where they had he was at a debate or just like a rally, and he was saying like pretty gross things about body parts. And
when he's like smoking a cigarette,
oh, honey, where'd I lose you? Like, that's where like you were fine with like fucking them to death, but like this is where.
He does like his like sort of like Dennis Leary like cigarette, you know, stand up routine where he's ripping on Muslims.
I mean, I think that you can't not see it with Trump. Like he's
no, it is Trump. It is him. Yeah. You know what I think?
I think I'm gonna also just miss Garrison too. You know, I'm gonna kind of miss him.
I know. I will miss Garrison as the teacher. I'll miss him when he's doing his history lessons and it's about you know, like for people that watch South Park will know, but he always has a history lesson, but it's always sort of a pop culture thing. So he'll be doing history about the French Revolution, but he's actually talking about Les Mis.
Yeah.
or he's doing a history lesson on European history, and he's actually talking about Game of Thrones.
Or it's just horribly, horribly inaccurate.
Right. But I think also on a more simplistic level, it's just not as funny. I think it's more funny structurally to the series to have Garrison be Trump than just Trump.
I remember a long time ago, I kind of felt that way about the Mel Gibson character until I realized, oh, that's actually just Mel Gibson. Like, that wasn't really a character. But I remember I was like, that's such a, crazy character. And again, that was true. But I think that it would have been kind of like that, where they would have made such a cartoonish character, because he is a cartoon character.
Yeah.
That it would have been maybe too hard to create him.
Yeah, I think it's just easier having Garrison be Trump.
Yeah. And it would have been really bad if they made him Trump, but they made him Trump in all the ways he's not funny.
Yeah. No, certainly. And ultimately, I liked Garrison's transformation in this. I hope he does stick around as the president.
Yeah. I think the only way that they could have done it was if they just had an animation of Trump and just voiceover of the real Trump. They've done that, I think, with characters in the past.
A few times here and there.
There was an NFL episode where they did that.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been almost, not an easy way out, but I think that would have been the only way, maybe the most responsible way of doing Trump.
Well, this sort of brings us to another kind of issue about the comment that they make on comedy in general. Because the final episode of season 20, there is this another one of these climactic scenes between Gerald and this nameless troll.
Yeah.
He's just referred to as the troll, which I liked. And they this whole conversation about what is satire? Are you just being, nihilistic towards everything? And then the troll says, well, maybe, what is he? He says something like, well, maybe this is just the postmodern, satire world.
Funny.
Yeah, post-funny sort of world. And, I think that, comedy has definitely taken a hit over the past decade or so. And there is that question of what is funny? Is Alec Baldwin actually being funny as Trump?
Well, I think there's really two sides of it. I think that there is the funny where it's safe space funny, where you're not bothering anyone. And then there's the funny where you're actually just being kind of bigot, and you're kind of just saying
shockingly funny.
Or you're just using buzzwords. And I think both of them are awful and both of them are dangerous. I think that the really safe funny is that, I don't want to live in a world where, only Disney Channel approved jokes will be considered funny. Or, I think that,
I don't want to live in a world where you can't have a joke about the cum and joke mines of Mars.
Exactly, yeah. Or, where, again, you can't make fun of Caitlyn Jenner.
Right.
Who is stunning and brave. But that's, I think that you can't, I don't like sort of that sacred aspect where we're getting to, where everyone in power, every celebrity is sacred because they all have feelings. And yeah, they do. I'm sure Lena Dunham has feelings, but she's annoying.
Yeah, well, she's also a spoiled New York City art brat, basically, so I could care less.
I think that's sort of the thing, is that you can't criticize these people. You can't criticize people in power. And that's a really dangerous place to be, because they should be held accountable. And I'm even going to use celebrities in that as well. They should be held accountable for what they say, what they do. And I think comedy is a really great way of doing it. I think comedy is also one of the most peaceful ways of holding people accountable. And I think that it really does then it also then gets to the point of what is censoring art. And I think that censoring comedy is censoring art.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And there's also just the kind of on one side we have this very PC, safe space sort of comedy. And then on the other side of that, it's basically just gross out humor where just throw some boobs in there and some guy taking a dump. and maybe, some kind of animal sexual cruelty, and, we'll call it a day.
Let's just throw Larry the Cable Guy in there.
Right, or let's get Seth Rogen and James Franco to, do some bullshit movie. And maybe the CIA will help, push it along, and we'll just call it a day.
Yeah.
Whereas, I think that moment towards the end of episode 10 is like a bigger question about like, what is satire? Like, what is funny anymore? Like, are we getting to a post funny world where it's funny to just to kind of like laugh it off, like we're all gonna die, Or
and I think about that a lot because I definitely do understand the nihilistic quality of that, and I do think that, especially the way that the world that we are entering now, it does feel kind of nihilistic, and it does sort of feel like, well, fuck it, like, But at the same point, I think that comedy is to make light of tragedy, and I think sometimes with what I felt sort of with the major troll, the Norwegian troll, was doing is he was just making tragedy of tragedy. And in that way, no one wins. And I think that in comedy now, it's either tragedy for tragedy, or it's like just making comedy that won't really bother anyone.
Yeah.
And you should bother. Like, bothering people is an important part of satire. And I think South Park has always been
the only show
that truly has, that has always been satirical and like with, I think, a real message. And I also think that people think that it's sometimes crude. And I think those are people that don't really watch it. I think there are actually really good messages to it. I think there are.
But even in some of the crude episodes, like the one where, Randy takes the biggest dump in the world.
Yeah, but it was to make fun of Bono.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, like it was to make a point.
But even those, it's like, it's still okay every once in a while. It's okay to laugh at like a poop joke.
I mean, they're funny. Everyone likes
poop is funny.
Joke.
Farts are funny. It's okay. We don't have to dismiss that entirely.
I babysit little boys sometimes, and like the one thing that we can always agree on is every nation, every culture finds a fart funny.
Oh, yeah.
And if they
there's no way, if you were in like the Situation Room, and you're about to, we're gonna bomb Iran, we're gonna take them out, all this stuff.
Fart.
Yeah, exactly. And if, one of the Joint Chiefs just laid out a nasty one, people are gonna laugh, even in a tense situation.
And the person that doesn't, you're like,
yeah. Even in that foxhole when the enemy is around you, if your buddy laid, a pretty serious fart, you're probably going to laugh a little bit before you're bludgeoned to death by the invading army.
I was once in a cab with my mom, and she was really mad at me, and I farted, and that was the only thing that kind of broke
the silence.
Yeah, silence, yeah.
Well, moving on a little bit, because we're getting up towards the end, I think some of the lessons that we can take away from this season, and then we'll kind of fill in some of our final thoughts on South Park and whatnot. But some of the lessons that we can take away. Number one, it did make me think twice about what I say online, and also even what I like look up online. Because there is that, and I don't think that none of us should be afraid to, look at that weird porn and or research a particular topic or anything like that. But we do live in this world that is becoming more interconnected, and privacy is an issue. Our own privacy, and then the privacy to kind of, I guess, do whatever we want to. So I don't know. What did you think about that?
I really liked it. I don't think that there's anything wrong with going on certain websites, even if you're on Ashley Madison and you're just looking.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, it's not me. It's your decision to do that. I think that what this season maybe said is maybe we should police ourselves a little bit, or maybe we should just sort of be a little bit more conscious of
be more cognizant of like how we affect other people.
And I do think though, I paused a couple times to read what Ike's internet history was, and it's adorable. If you get a chance to read it, it's really cute. And then like you only see for a very small moment what Gerald's internet history is.
Emails to Planned Parenthood.
It's like emails to like Planned Parenthood, like tweet to Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
Like,
tweet to like breast cancer awareness.
Yeah, and like Reddit. And I do think that it's got to be Reddit.
I suppose it wasn't like 4chan or something.
I was a little surprised too. Yeah. But I do think that we should be conscious of what our internet history is. Only in the sense of that, you know, if you would be embarrassed, there's probably a reason you'd be embarrassed.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Like, if you're not embarrassed by, like, your weird horse porn, which I think it's illegal.
I hope so. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Well, yeah, so. All
right, if you're,
now we know what Emma's internet history is mostly of.
It's actually mules only.
Right, right. Yeah, I don't fuck with horses anymore.
I'm into the hybrids. But if you're embarrassed by something, there's probably a reason to it. And it's, you know, that's fine. But I think just be aware of why that is. And I think also be aware that trolling is not as anonymous as we think it is, you know? And I think that it also has real effects on people. As I will learn after I finish recording.
The second we're done recording this episode. No, I would...
When Lena Dunham just attacks me.
No, I would echo that, and maybe just sort of like tweak it a little. It's not that we should, I think we should just be cognizant of how our perceived anonymity online affects people that we're close to.
Yes.
So, you know, that's like a big kind of thing in this episode, of course, you know, like Sheila, Gerald's wife, you know, begins to look at Gerald's horrific internet history. It gets wiped out, and Gerald kind of like wins out.
How do you feel about that?
I liked it because I thought it was just really funny.
It was really funny,
you know?
But I will say that there was like, especially Ike looked pissed. And I wonder if they keep up with the sort of singular story.
Yeah.
If they will have sort of then like the kids have, well now I think that's the other thing is with the internet, you can use blackmail in a whole new way.
Well, that's the thing too.
And
I mean,
now these kids have this horrific information on their father.
I know. I mean, and not to sound too sort of paranoid conspiracy theorist out there, but you know, right? But you know, be realistic. If you're on some not illegal but questionable websites,
horse porn. I'm talking to you, horse porn.
We're talking to all those horse lovers out there. But you're also trying to, you know, crack the biggest alt media story. It's like, don't give them any more reason to discredit you. And I guess it's not to discourage the horse porn aficionados and stuff. I mean, you know, if it's between consenting horses, fine. But just be aware that it does exist, that we do live in an age where blackmail is becoming much more sort of
much more easy.
I hate to say it's socially acceptable.
Oh, definitely. Well, I think that's the thing. I remember when the Ashley Madison hack happened, and I actually felt really bad for those people. Like, I felt bad for all those, like, single sexless dads. Like, they probably never met anyone on there. And I kind of was like, we want to villainize them, but at the same point, we've all probably been on websites that like we wouldn't want our wives or our partner.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like a website where you have the intent of cheating on someone.
Or it doesn't even have to be. Yeah, it could literally be as simple as, or even just like an embarrassing website, like looking up some weird lump you found. Like, you know,
right.
Yeah, you just don't. I wouldn't want my really boring internet history to be public knowledge, just because you wouldn't want that public knowledge. I wouldn't want my boring work email sent to someone else.
Yeah, no, and I guess it just sort of, again, reiterating this, just does make you think about how we live on the internet. And it does live on forever.
Yeah.
And also, you know, I think it's, especially in the alt media environment that we live in right now, it's very easy to click on the wrong link and suddenly you're on some kind of database. And, you know, believe me, there are people out there that Matthew Alford talks about this in his book, The Writer with No Hands, when he was researching the murder of Gary DeVore, a guy who was knew Gary DeVore quite well. And might have even known some other CIA characters. When he was looking into Gary DeVore's murder, he was sent some sort of link from someone that claimed to be, giving him some information. He clicked on it, and it was child pornography.
Ugh.
And the express message of that was, now we've got something on you. Do not go any further with this. So just, be aware. I know that's like a real kind of scary, ominous message, but but those things I think that is a reality that we live in nowadays, when we're so connected to the internet and so much of our lives are dictated by what we do online.
Finally, I think also now becoming more aware of the reality of what eternal life means through the internet.
Yeah.
And I think that we didn't get it because, again, we are all now living through a time where we're
immortal.
We don't remember a time, people like our age, we remember a time without the internet. We remember a time without computers, but we don't remember a time without the internet. And I think we are now immortal. We will live on forever afterwards in some weird way. And it sounds like a Philip K. Dick book.
I think that
it's because we now need to learn how to live in a way where when you die, you don't really, you physically die, but your entire history can be...
your internet history lives on.
You can find out, what weird shit Grandpa was into.
Right, exactly. And you may not want to know.
Yeah, you may not want to know what Grandpa was into.
Yeah. And then that, of course, just sort of gets into the whole kind of transhumanist agenda of the internet.
It used to be sort of, you would maybe find some weird letters where you're like, oh, Grandpa was bad at writing erotica.
Right.
But now you can see, oh, Grandpa was really into a webcam.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Grandpa was actually good with erotica. He was pretty into erotica.
And I think that that's something that we're now going to have to face, the reality of living our lives on the internet. And I think that South Park did a really good job at that with Heidi Turner's Twitter suicide, where your life, for some people, it really ends when you're not on the internet.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know if you could survive without internet.
Me personally?
Yeah.
Probably not. I mean, do you think you honestly could at the end of the day? I mean, you wouldn't be able to sell your clothes on,
That's true.
I think it's...
financially.
Yeah, I think
financially, I couldn't. But everything else, if I never had to write another email again, I would.
No, of course, I despise that too. But you can even think of the you're in some area you don't know, and you take out your phone to look up Google Maps.
I think that's the thing, is that we're now getting to the point where we realize that.
Oh, we're completely dependent.
We're dependent on it, and we weren't. People got.
I'll say,
before.
I'll say, of course, yeah. I mean, it's called a map.
The Silk Road didn't have Wi-Fi.
or even remember when people would look up MapQuest on. You're still online, but you're looking it up, and then I remember even drawing things out in my notebook.
Do you know what I did? I'll show you later on my phone. I don't like using the internet on my phone when I'm out, so I take a picture of the map on my computer screen, which it works, kind of.
I'll say, one other thing.
That's a really great life hack for you people.
yeah. Hashtag life hack. Now I've sort of forgotten what I wanted to say with that. I guess just quickly on, internet history, we do learn, in this season, we learned a couple things based on the internet history. We learned one that I don't think was ever disclosed before, but we learned that Kyle's family lives at 1002 Avenue de los Mexicanos. I think that's a new fun fact for South Park watchers out there. We also, from Ike's history, just quickly, he Googles how to lose your baby teeth.
I love that funny. One. That was one of my favorites.
He of course he's
Rising Canadian Stars.
Rising Canadian Stars. He Googles the new chimp Pokemon. He also looks up some
Justin Trudeau a couple times.
Looks up some Demi Lovato videos, and South Park has got some weird obsession.
They make fun of her in another.
They do, yeah. They make fun of her, but
I don't know who she is. Is she the one that was with Bieber?
No, she used to open for the Jonas Brothers, and then dated Wilmer Valderrama. and also was like a huge like cokehead and like tried to kill herself.
A Disney star.
I think she's a Disney star. But they have some weird obsession with Demi Lovato. And then my favorite, I don't know if you caught this, Emma, but Ike is also he's looked
Crunchyroll?
up Crunchyroll. Yeah, he looks up Naruto.
Crunchyroll.
And did you see the one of the animes that Ike looks up is Yuri on Ice? Have you seen that?
No.
It's a sports anime / love story between a young Japanese guy named Yuri and his older Russian coach named Victor.
I need to leave right now.
I watched about 2 episodes.
Forget about the mule porn. That is going to be my new thing.
So, shout out to Yuri on Ice. I did watch 2 episodes of it last night, and I was actually got kind of hooked.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to become it's going to become a problem where I'm going to talk about Yuri on Ice. People are like, Emma, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, and anyone out there that's interested in looking up Yuri on Ice, it is free on Crunchyroll, which is a great anime website. It's like Netflix for anime.
Yeah, I used it.
I remember. So those are just some little, sort of South Park fun facts for anyone out there. But to kind of to sum this up, and talk about the sort of bigger issues, because South Park they always do a smattering of episodes that are just the boys having fun going on an adventure, but then they do also do the sort of like lessons learned type episodes.
I feel like this one really had the lessons learned. I think that I kind of like that it wasn't even so much the lessons were learned, and sometimes they do that too where they're like, did we learn anything?
Oh, well, clearly Gerald didn't learn anything.
Yeah. Like, he was giving, the boys a thumbs up.
I love that shot of him with the smile.
Such a bastard.
Yeah.
And I think even, the boys didn't learn anything.
No, I mean, Cartman learned
maybe,
that, lying to his girlfriend was, kind of okay.
Yeah, he could get away with it.
Yeah, he could get away with it. But I thought that, again, in sort of this, and this is classic South Park, which is why this is such a valued, sacred show to me and Emma, is that the real enemy, of course, is not Garrison, trolls, women, men, it's really ourselves, it's society. Mm-hmm. It's the mob mentality that we allow the space for people like Garrison to get elected, that we allow the space for trolls to operate in such a sort of vast way. And again,
where it's the collective against the individual.
Yeah, and rather than admit our own faults, we blame it on other people. So, of course, throughout the season, Randy is, what's the member berries? It's the member berries. It's not the fact that people want to eat the member berries.
Yeah.
It's that the member berries just simply exist. Yeah. And this is very classic South Park, where the enemy is really within. It's the collective.
They're so great.
Yeah, right.
If they're ever going to be listening to this, I just want them to know that they're probably my top 1 creative influencers.
Oh yeah, please. If Matt Stone and Trey Parker are listening and ever want to come on the show, I would be more than honored to have them on. But talking about that, because no other show out there does this.
No.
Especially, let alone a comedy.
Especially one that's been on for so long. I feel like I grew up
20
watching
years,
it.
Yeah.
That was... I remember the first time I saw it was 1999, because they did a Star Wars parody that we had on our it was the first download that we got on the computer. And that was the first time I saw it, and I loved it. And it was even still one of those things, I remember watching it whenever they would come out. And even the ones that I didn't necessarily understand because I was young enough, I realized that they were important. And I think that's an important thing, is that television should have, or media in general should have some importance. Whether it's entertainment or not. And I think South Park does entertainment, but there is something to it.
There's a deeper meaning behind a lot of it. No, and I mean, if we're trading our South Park stories, I remember when it first came out, and this was back. Yeah, and this was back when we shared a room in our old neighborhood, and I remember watching. I can't remember the exact episode, but I remember watching it late at night with the volume almost on mute. Because I was so terrified that my mom or our mother would come in and just lose her shit over me watching it.
She has her Sheila moments.
Yeah, although she is now a huge fan of South Park.
She's a huge fan, yeah. I don't think they've seen the newest one.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it was always like when we lived at their house. It was
always on. Yeah, it was definitely always on.
Yeah.
But getting back to again the concept of like that the enemy is ourselves and stuff. What do you think about that in? Because it kind of just transcends everything.
Well, I think that's how I always view everything as the enemy, or not even the self, but I think your only ally is yourself, and then the rest of it isn't necessarily maybe your enemy, but I think that there's even a line where he talks about like collective guilt. And
Kyle has the
and he like touches on that a little bit, and I think that is something that South Park, they sort of talk about. All of these people are doing this one thing. It's so crazy. And they did it really well in the last election. Or it was the first time Obama was elected.
Mm-hmm.
And they had like people like in the street like Randy.
Oh, yeah.
Obama!
Yeah.
Crazy. And I think they were always really good at showing kind of how ridiculous people can be. And how ridiculous the mob mentality can be. But in a more societal level.
Yeah, and also just the concept of just there's almost this sort of element, again, because South Park will always sort of a lot of times sort of view it within the context of South Park, the town, and the town is always sort of gets all riled up.
Microcosm.
Yeah, of larger society. Yeah, exactly. But in the ways that they embrace certain ideas, like in the previous season, in season 19, it's the whole gentrification.
I will say I wanted a little bit more PC Principal.
Yeah, I was a little bummed that PC Principal wasn't. Although I mean they're keeping him around.
They're keeping him around, yeah. And I think also like last season, like there was just PC.
Yeah, it was a lot of PC bros out there. But I
down and push.
I think it's really important to support shows like this too, because again, we're talking about the sort of absence within the comedy world of all this stuff. I mean, it really doesn't exist. I mean, the only other show again that I would sort of put on par with this in terms of like talking about really kind of larger issues, but in a very kind of personal manner, like on a within a family dynamic, is like King of the Hill.
Yeah.
Which I think did tackle
on a much more sort of like realistic.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
It was definitely like, I mean, I think that's a show. I think what I like about that show is sort of what I hate about trolling, is I like that it was a show about people genuinely being nice to each other. And like, you don't see that on television ever. Usually it's like people kind of being loud and rude to each other, and I think that's why King of the Hill was so amazing. It was a show that it was actually about people that cared about each other, and we're like real people,
right? And I think in an odd sort of way, South Park manages to do that as well, because I think realistically, as much as the boys hate each other, even like Cartman and Kyle, they need each other. They need each other. Like they're not able to exist. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's like a weird sort of codependent
really weird
sort of relationship.
Issue.
But there is I think that's another sort of a lot of people will debate are Matt Stone and Trey Parker, are they libertarians? Are they conservatives? And I don't think any of that matters.
And I think they're just making a show about just the human condition.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's
without being sappy.
No, it's never sappy. Even the episodes where they try to be sappy, it's always like funny.
It's never sappy.
Yeah. It's never it doesn't come across as being like melodramatic.
Yeah.
But again, the human condition, that we're all kind of in this together. And I think that's another sort of element of South Park.
We're all in South Park.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that South Park just represents the larger world around it. And it's a much more broad and ridiculous, over-the-top version. But everything that they talk about is real, and everything they talk about does happen. Obviously, we don't have all of the sort of imagination land qualities of it, but in the end of the day, it is all saying something that has something to do with our world. I think that's important, and I think that that's what great art should do, is it should reflect the world around you. And not just the world that you want to live in, but the world that we actually live in.
No, we were talking about that before we started recording, again, the idea of art reflecting society. And so much, again, and South Park is so good at that because they are literally doing, the show comes out Wednesday. Thursday, they're writing a new episode and it's airing the next week. So they can be topical in the sense of like current events, but also topical in the sense of like the way that society is moving. Yeah. And a lot of episodes are like that without, say throwing in topical moments or celebrities and stuff. Even when it's just the boys having fun, there is a lot of just the reality, the way that the world works is thrown into these episodes. And it is a shame to see that there's really like a serious void when it comes to that within art or within, culture. I guess again, encourage everyone, go and watch this season if you haven't seen it. If you've never watched South Park, I don't know if this is the best way to start.
It quite the justice that it deserves, I think, in this conversation. Watching Butters with his little wiener out. There's
amazing. A lot of there's so many sort of layers that, of course, we even in a 2-hour conversation, we barely scratched the surface of this season, let alone the sort of the whole series. As a whole, there's so much going on in South Park. There's so much to discover, and it is sad that there really are it's like the only really satirical show out there that continues to make, even when the episode, even there are some seasons we don't like, episodes we don't like, but even those they're still doing something. There's this wonderful sort of like almost like an improvisational nature to it, in that they're making these so fast and that they really are trying to make you laugh, but also occasionally make you think.
And I think that's what I love about the way that their schedule works, is that they don't even really give you time to sit back and have it settle. Like it's gonna come out Wednesday. Yeah. And I know they've missed a deadline once.
And that was only because of a power outage.
Yeah. They're so great. But I think that's what's so amazing, is that they've never missed one. They've always done it on a Wednesday, and it's always come out. So you don't even have time to settle. We didn't have time to get used to the idea of Trump Garrison being president. Right. We just made an episode of it.
Well, and again, I think that also reflects the especially nowadays, the society we live in, where you don't get time to think about anything. No. It's just boom, now it's a hashtag. Now it's old, it's passé, it's not even relevant anymore. You got to move on to the next thing. So again, South Park is so good at that. Or
you're just remembering the good old days.
Right, or you just, eat those member berries and, just sort of forget about your troubles. So again, I think Emma and I could not, recommend South Park in general. It is, it's always sad when a season ends, because then there's, you don't have that, release halfway through the week to kind of, I do like build my week around South Park. I'll say this. I've also, I've never missed watching an episode until very recently. I almost always try to watch it when it actually comes out on Comedy Central.
Are you excited for any new shows? We know Homeland. We know that.
I know Homeland. I'm excited for. I'm excited for the new season of Archer. Yeah. And maybe that would be another episode we could do.
Yeah, I love television.
Talking about
maybe
Archer.
We can tell that.
Yeah. Quickly, Emma, because we're getting up towards the end. If people want to check out your artwork, check out anything, where can they find it?
They can find me on emmaredmond.com. It's really the best way to find out more about me, what I do. They can also see my Instagram, which is Emma__Redmond. That's another way. Holidays times are coming. I make a lot of fun things for the holidays. Or if you know any babies, like cool babies only, I make really great baby quilts. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
That's where you can find me.
Yeah, and like Emma was saying, holidays are just around the corner. Emma's got lots of great stuff, all sorts of dresses, knitwear, quilts. You don't sell any of your drawings, right? Or
I have some of them on my website. I don't draw as much anymore. my time is mostly taken up sewing and dyeing and weaving. It takes up a lot of effort. Which I do urge you to do this Christmas, like, buy ethical if you can. If you can. I know it's obnoxious to say it, but
so there's the little plug for ethical, non-cruelty free clothing, which is if Emma's back on the show again soon, I'm sure you'll hear more about that.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, I will get on my soapbox.
Yes, yeah, right.
I just really want to be trolled.
Yeah. So yes, and of course, if you want to troll us, please do go ahead and do that.
And I've never been trolled, so just really go all out.
Yeah, just go hog wild, like just go like that hardcore final scene in a horse porn. Just go full force with the trolling. Yeah, exactly. So we have a baseline for that. And anyway, of course, if you want to support my work, you can of course go to my website, PorkinsPolicyReview.com, and you can find the links to Patreon. Both for Porkins Policy Radio, as well as Porkins Great Game. Well, I will be coming to you next week with an excellent Christmas-themed episode with our good friend Tom Secker, but until then, I will be talking to you very soon.
News and information you can trust. This is American Freedom Radio. Freedom, American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.